Good morning. So my question for you today is, what do you do when you find yourself getting caught up in persistent thoughts where things go round and round and you realise it's a bit like being in some kind of a trap and you don't really want to be thinking about all these things and it's not really going anywhere, and actually what you really want to do is just to become more present to things. So I thought I'd share about some of the things I do that help me. I would say the number one is the breathing. When I start to make my out breath a bit longer and deeper, that forces the following in breath to be deeper. And the next thing, and I'm breathing deeply. So I've come across this wonderful piece of information from my Bowen therapist, and she says, this is what happens whenever you breathe in. What happens is your brain starts to scan your body and it starts to heal it. And then whenever you breathe out, what happens is your brain starts to scan your energy body and the field surrounding you and starts to heal it too. So here's the bit of magic which she made me realise. If you're one of these people that breathes very shallowly, that means that process just starts to get going, and all of a sudden, because you've stopped, that process stops. So every time you breathe in shallowly, you start to scan your body to heal it, and then it stops. And likewise, when you breathe out, it starts to scan your energy field to heal it. It stops. That doesn't sound too good. Whereas on the other hand, if what you do is you lengthen your breath, have a longer in breath and longer out breath, then that means that the mind can really get to grips with that healing process. It doesn't just start to scan the body, it actually really gets on with some healing. And it's interesting when I lie in bed next to my partner and I pay attention to her breathing, because I notice when she's asleep there's a nice regular deep thing going on there. So this is why sleep is so incredibly important, because we can naturally tend to get into a breathing rhythm which helps, and then our brain does this extraordinary thing was it pulses, it produces these pulses, and they're energy pulses, and these are also very healing. It just literally pulses all the way through the body. So healing, incredibly important, which you get from your good sleep and you get from your deep breathing. So I had a bit of a funny feeling about the one I'm talking about today, because it's already gone off in the different directions, and that's totally fine. So something else that I find is very helpful if they get caught up by persistent circular thoughts is to get out my drum and do a bit of drumming and just be present to that vibration. Because let's face it, we're all vibration, everything is vibrating all the time, whether we're aware of it or whether we aren't. So by adding a nice shamanic theta vibration, and you don't need to have a fancy drum to do this, a pair of chopsticks will do. You can tap them, you can just tap your finger to your thumb. It's the same thing, it's creating that particular rhythm, and you can go and have a look at my films about drumming for the shamanic journey, theta brain rhythm, and just get a feeling for what that rhythm is like. You can tap your leg with your hand or whatever, it all works. So I find that's also really helpful and valuable to get into some rhythm, and that takes me out of my head and back into the world again, the bigger picture. And then of course this is one of my favourites, which is just to go outside and so it start to extend my senses. And I love doing this. It's one of my great pleasures in life, which is why I like to be in places without too many people, on a regular basis, because I find that easier. I'm not contacting anybody else's energy field, and so here I am. This is such a wonderful opportunity to do it, because I become aware of the colours, I'm aware of the sounds of the water flowing through the stream. I can hear the birds, and I can hear the cars being driven by the humans in the area as well. And there's something about it. It's called extroverted sensing. And extroverted sensing is when you turn your attention away from yourself, literally out of your head, into the environment. And this can be a deeply nourishing thing to do. And if you live in a place where you can just go outside and appreciate some nature, that's wonderful. And there's something else you can do, which is if you don't have that ability, you can just actually have the same experience. Not quite the same, admittedly, but it still can be pretty powerful, which is to watch a film or to watch anything where you see beautiful landscapes. It could be a film, TV show, it could be one of the meditations I've got on my channel, where I've deliberately gone out into nature and I'm in total silence and I just show you what's going on. So one of the things that is so healing for us is when we get out of our heads, to use the old cliche from long ago. Hey, I just got out of my head. I'm in the experience of the water flowing and the beautiful leaves of the plants, that fern straight ahead there, the sycamore above it. And this brings us into peacefulness again. So no matter how turbulent or disturbing our thoughts might be, we find that when we do what I'm doing now, we just let them all go. And I'm so aware of the magnificence of this plant, of all these plants. And I also have this very particular sense that I get in this time in autumn, because I know that changes are coming. And it does elicit feelings in me with the changes when we get into the beginnings of autumn. At the moment we've still got all the leaves on the trees and on the plants. And yet we can see when we're walking along that a lot of leaves have already started to fall. And we know this process is just going to continue and accelerate. And so really this brings me into my next theme, a bit of a multi-themed one this, and that's about the processes of life. Because just personally for me, because I was born in April, that is something so wonderfully satisfying about putting a seed into some soil and waiting and watching, and then the first little shoot comes up and it starts to grow. It's very easy for me to be tuned into and appreciate that part of the cycle of the process of life, because that's when I was born, so it kind of makes sense. And my partner, Roxara, she's born at a completely different time. And that's a time when actually the leaves have already fallen off the trees, which is coming quite soon. And here we are, we've got one coming up. We can start to see the browning of these leaves here. So this will happen. These leaves are all going to fall off, and it's part of the processes of life. So I find that when summer shifts into autumn, I get that moment where I start to feel a bit uncomfortable. Oh, but they're all going to fall off. And I remind myself it's all about the processes of life. So, indeed, the leaves fall, the trees become bare, autumn turns into winter, and then winter turns into spring, and so it continues. And this, I guess, is one of the things that I value so much about living on this planet Earth, is the change. The fact we have so much change, and it's the only thing we can completely rely upon is change. So whatever is going on for you right now, and I've been going through some fairly challenging stuff for myself in the last few weeks, it's helpful to remember it's all going to change anyway, because everything does all the time. So we really are on the cusp here. We're in autumn, but only the early stages. When we get a couple of big storms, then these leaves are going to be gone. So I'm just celebrating the fact I can show you this lovely green view for the moment, and knowing that it will change some more. And I'm aware when I walk down to see that it's cooler than it used to be, and that's alright. In fact, that's the message really, isn't it? When we accept the processes of life, we shift right into that gratitude that makes life so much more enjoyable. Because at any moment we can choose to be in complaint, neutrality, acceptance, or appreciation. Yeah, so that's our choice at all times. So I'm thanking very much the guides and helpers this morning for pointing me in the right direction, and for the little bit of drumming I did before I came out. And great love to you all. Thank you.